So I recently had the chance to have a little bit of hands-on time, just a little, with the new Huawei Mate Xs. This is Huawei's second generation foldable. And you might be thinking, well, hang on, I don't remember the Mate X in shops anytime. And you'd be right, because that's a foldable that never actually made it out of China, despite a lot of hype around when Huawei might bring it to market. The Mate Xs, however, Huawei has said they intend to take global, with Australian availability expected around April. And really, before I start, I should give a huge shout out to my good friend Leigh Stark from Pickr, because he's been my hand model through a great deal of this. I can't quite be behind the camera and holding and folding a phone at the same time. I only have so many arms. Now, this is very much a phone which is going to be a story of two sides. You've got the hardware and you've got the software. I'll deal with the software first because, frankly, I didn't get as much time to deal with that anyway. Huawei is using Android, but it's only Android open source. So there's no Google services on there. There's no YouTube. There's no Google Play Store. There's no pre-installed Chrome. And while I'm sure some people will work out slightly dodgy ways to perhaps get this onto the Mate Xs, certainly not on the model that I tested with, Google doesn't really advise it, and it feels like a bit of a cat and a mouse game, and maybe a security threat as well. What Huawei does have is its own app gallery, and it says it's working quite hard to try and get more apps on there. Certainly, when I tested out the Mate 30 Pro though, it was still lacking in a lot of apps people would want, and I do think that is a big challenge and a big problem for a phone that is going to be as expensive as the Mate Xs. So what do I like? Well, look, it's got basically the camera off the P30 Pro merged with the camera off the Mate 30 Pro, which essentially means it's got a really, really good stills camera, probably also a good video camera as well. Didn't have a huge amount of opportunity to play around with that, but there's a lot of scope there, and you can do some cool stuff like when it's folded in, use that front display as an effective mirror while taking selfies. It's kind of neat. The actual folding form factor is also really good. I really like this idea of, here's a regular phone and it unfolds out into a tablet. I think I genuinely do prefer that to the idea of the flip phone, and I like the way Huawei's implemented it here. I did like the Samsung Galaxy Fold quite a bit, but that small external screen really killed me. I just couldn't quite get on with it. I much prefer this, although obviously there are some questions about durability in the long term. Having spent a little bit of time with the original model, the new one does have a slightly better, slightly smoother hinge. It feels a little stronger, so it should last the distance a little better, but it's also a fair bit easier to actually fold and unfold at will, and that still remains kind of the core reason why you'd buy this phone. You'd buy a foldable because it's foldable, and it's fun to do. It feels kind of satisfying in the same way, admittedly, as the Galaxy Fold, and it's a great party piece. It's also 5G ready. Again, couldn't really put that to the test, but given what Huawei wants for this phone, I think it's reasonable enough to actually throw 5G in there as well. The problem here, of course, is that it's not going to be cheap. In Australia, it's going to hit somewhere around $4,000. And yes, you heard me right, $4 grand for a phone. We've come to that point in time, people. And that's a huge ask for a phone that doesn't quite have full Google. It may be a second generation phone, but you're still really paying those early adopter prices. Anyway, those are my early thoughts. What do you think? Are you keen on this kind of thing? Do you think it's just still too expensive for all but the 1%? Let me know in your thoughts below. Thanks again to Leigh for being such a willing hand model, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe.